Before we let 2019 disappear, I have to do one final video covering games acquired and played in the month of December. And then after this, perhaps towards the end of January, perhaps in February, I'm going to do a video covering 2019 as a whole in terms of the board games that I acquired and played, as well as my favorites of the year. So my best of 2019 is going to be covered sometime in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, let's talk about December 2019. The games acquired in December center around two events. One was a friend's game auction and the other was Christmas. So I had previously mentioned a few games I had picked up from this friend. She had offered games for sale privately to friends before auctioning them to the general public. So I had previously picked up from her Champions of Midgard to eventually play with my kids. I'm not sure if they're quite old enough to really get into this one. They might be. I'll have to give it a try sometime and see. The other one for the kids was Doodle Quest. Now I know this is Looney Quest, but we already sold Doodle Quest after subsequently picking up Looney Quest and enjoying it more. And then one little two-player game I had picked up for myself was Court of the Medici, which I don't know if I'll ever get to this game. It seems to require somebody who's very sort of mathematically oriented and who's willing to explore this game over the course of multiple plays. Not sure if I have an opponent that would appreciate this or if I would even enjoy it, but it's such a tiny little game. I figured it doesn't take up much space on the shelf for now. So these are the ones I had previously picked up from my friend prior to her holding the auction. And then the games I purchased through the auction were another two-player game that looked kind of interesting called Neuroshima Convoy. I'm a big fan of playing Neuroshima Hex on my phone. It's such a great little game and a great phone implementation. I haven't actually played the game in person, I don't think, but I do quite enjoy the game. And so I thought that this looked like another interesting two-player asymmetrical card-based game. So it's one that maybe I'll give a try some point. Maybe I'll sell it on. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that one at any point. And then two others I picked up for my kids. One was Summoner Wars, Phoenix Elves and Tundra Orcs. Now I guess this is a starter set with two factions, and now that my kids have had some experience playing Magic, it seems like the type of game that they might pick up fairly easily and we might have some fun with. So I'm gonna have to give that a try with them sometime and see how that goes. And then the other game I picked up for my kids was Smash Up, and this came with a couple of expansions. It came with one called Awesome Level 3000 and another called the Obligatory Cthulhu Set. I have already played a bunch of games of this one with the kids, so I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So these are what I picked up through my friend. Now let's talk about Christmas presents. The Christmas gift that we picked up for my younger boy was My Little Cythe, and we did get a chance to play it, so I'm going to talk about the play of My Little Cythe shortly, but this was kind of his big game that he got for Christmas. For my older boy, we picked up Funkoverse Harry Potter. I guess Funkoverse strategy game Harry Potter. We picked up this 4-character base game as well as the 2-player expansion for Harry Potter Funkoverse. This is one that we played in January, so I'll get to talk about it next month. But in the meantime, I guess I can give a little spoiler and say it gets a definite thumbs up. And then one little one that I got in my stocking was a little party game called Things, where we get to sort of make things up slightly Balderdash style. And speaking of that, I put this game directly into my collection of make stuff up games that is all in the same box and includes Wise and Otherwise, Absolute Balderdash. What else do I have in here? I have Why Did the Chicken? I have Quip It, although holding onto a DVD game at this point might be not so useful. And so now I have things to add to this, and I still need to come up with a system whereby I can combine them all together and allow players to choose which sort of mode they're going to be playing as the game rounds progress. Or perhaps with each game round, we switch to a different game in this series. They're all very similar. You're presented with something and have to make something up to go along with it. And the tricky part is the scoring, because it's not really about the score. It's more about just saying things that'll make your friends laugh. I was thinking about it recently, and it's been years since I played any of this stuff, so I really need to find an opportunity to break this out and have some laughs with some other creative people who enjoy this type of thing. Now, the game I had picked out for my wife for Christmas has not arrived in stores yet, unfortunately, so I just gave her sort of a ticket that says this game is coming eventually, and that is Expedition to Newdale. So whenever it arrives, I'll talk about it, and in the meantime, I'm excited for its release. So that's all the good stuff that I acquired in December. Let me clean it up, and I'll talk about the games that we played. Alright, let's jump into the games played in December. Because the kids were home for 2 weeks over the Christmas break, we ended up doing quite a bit of gaming that month. And as usual, I'll get the boring Magic the Gathering stuff out of the way first. Although there are a couple of fun things to mention this month regarding Magic. So my older boy expressed more interest again in the game, and I ended up playing a number of games with him. As usual, I was playing with my regular play partner, who got me into the game to begin with. And in December, one of my brothers contacted me and asked what advice I would give for a boy getting into the game, because apparently one of his boys just started playing it at a club at school. So that was pretty neat, and I got to play a quick game with him while we were having our Christmas family get together. So I'm looking forward to playing with my nephew some more, but unfortunately he lives an hour away, so it's not super easy to do. Now, the other really neat thing is that one of the reasons my wife was playing Magic with me in October and November was to get to know the game a little bit better, so that she could go to the friendly local game store and pick out some singles to put in my stocking, and she would actually know the game and know what she was looking at when she was looking at the cards, and use her knowledge to pick out some fun stuff for me. So it was super exciting to open up my stocking and find some singles that my wife had picked out for me, and I've been having fun rebuilding pretty much all my decks with the new cards I got and adding them in there, and I'm looking forward to playing with them too. So enough about Magic, let's talk about other family gaming. With the four of us, my wife and I and our two boys, we got back to Crusoe Crew, which the kids just love. It's been such a hit with them, and I was excited to discover that the same team that did this is doing another game in a very similar style, and this one is going to be called Sherlock Holmes Baker Street Irregulars. So it has the theme of Sherlock Holmes, but you're playing as the kids who assist Holmes with the investigations. And I don't know if it's on Kickstarter right now or if it was on Kickstarter recently, but I assume it's going to be coming out either later this year or next year, so it's one I'll be keeping a very close eye on. But the kids love this game, and we're quite happy to get back to it. Now, the other one that we played with the four of us was the younger boy's Christmas present, My Little Cythe. Now, coming from Stonemaier Games, of course, this was a lavishly produced, really excellently put together game, and it was all relatively easy to learn and dive into. As it happens, my youngest boy won the game that we played, so that was pretty neat. As far as comparing it to our other family games, though, it just seemed a little bit dull, maybe. There wasn't a really spark that ignited our excitement a lot. Nobody's asked for a second play of it yet, so it was a decent game, but nothing that really blew our minds other than the amazing figures and components and all of that stuff. So, on the whole, it was a fun little game, though. Well, not a really little game, a fairly large, fun game. Now, in terms of what I played 3-player with the boys, we got into Smash Up, and we mixed in the awesome level 3000 expansion stuff, although the Cthulhu stuff looked a little creepy for my kids, so I'm not sure if I'll end up using that particular expansion. But this was an immediate hit with both boys. They loved picking out their factions and just playing them out and see how they worked. They both immediately kind of each got stuck on a particular combo and didn't necessarily want to try other things, but we've played a few games. They did request it a few times after our first play, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a little too heavily reliant, I think, at least the factions we played, on removing your opponent's stuff, and I never really liked that mechanism where you have to sort of take away things your opponents have done rather than just building your own stuff. So that's my little nitpick with it. My kids really quite enjoyed it though. This game isn't entirely new to me. I played it once years ago when it was first released, and I was looking up my initial rating and comments after that, and I think I had rated the game 5 out of 10 after that first play. But I think I like it a little bit more than I did with that first impression, having played it with my kids. And I don't know if it's just because it's maybe better suited to play with younger players as opposed to adults, but this impression was more favorable than the initial one. The other one we did with the three of us was our print and play RPG Hero Kids. Now we've gotten through, I think, all of this stuff that I had downloaded for Hero Kids, and so we've had to get back to Hero Kids in Space, the sort of side RPG that's very much the same thing, but with a different setting. It always takes a bit of work to get things printed and cut out and prepared to play with them, but as far as being a DM in an RPG goes, because it's all pre-written and pre-made for you, it's pretty easy for someone like me to just set something up for the kids, and they always just love this game. This is one of their favorites still after all the times we've played it. In terms of stuff that I played one-on-one with each boy, like I said, I played quite a bit of Magic with the older boy, and then the younger one requested a game of Skull Hollow again. So he got to play as the little foxen heroes trying to take me down as the big monster, and he succeeded in doing so. And yeah, it's a fun game to play with the kids, although I still haven't gotten to play with an adult to see how I really think about the game myself. Because it does seem like the type of game where if I really went 100% with it, I could easily beat the kids every time, so I don't necessarily try my hardest, regardless of which faction I'm playing at the time. But one of these days I'll try it with somebody where I can really get into it and see how it holds up with playing against another gamer. Okay, now getting into some adult gaming, I played 2-player with my wife via Nebula. This is the second time we played the game since I picked it up last spring. Our first play was 3-player. This one was 2-player with my wife and I. And I love the physical production of this game. Everything about the components and the artwork is just so pleasing and fun. The game itself feels maybe a little bit too simplistic. I do appreciate that it is easy and fast playing and kind of a low effort game to play, but there's just not quite enough meat there, not quite enough length of the game to feel like you're building something interesting that you can really dig your teeth into. Dig your teeth into? Is that right? Sink your teeth into? Anyways, it's probably also better with 3 to 4 players than with 2. I don't know, it's a situation where I just wish we had a train game type of route building connection thing that wasn't like a big heavy 18xx type of thing, but maybe was a little more in-depth than via Nebula, and not quite the huge monster that Railroad Tycoon or Railways of the World was. Yeah, there's just a sweet spot there that I'm trying to hit, so if you have any recommendations, do let me know. In terms of other 2-player gaming, like I mentioned, I did Magic with my friend as usual, and with another friend, I got to play Terraforming Mars with Venus Next. Now, Terraforming Mars is one of her favorite games, and every time we play it together, she absolutely crushes me, but I feel like each time we play, I don't get beaten quite as horribly badly, so, I mean, that's enough progress to make me happy anyways. And it is really quite a tricky game. It's taken me a number of plays to sort of wrap my head around how best to get all the mechanisms working together. So that is one that's pretty good if you want something deep and long that you can really dig into and that'll get those brain cells stretching. And then finally, there were 2 3-player games with myself, my wife, and that friend. Oh, there are a couple of 4-player ones to mention here after that, but in terms of the 3-player games, we got to Deus, played with some of the elements of the Egypt expansion, and this has been a favorite with my wife and I and this friend for quite a long time. We've really enjoyed every play of this, and when the Egypt expansion came out, that really just kind of blew the game even more wide open and added so many fun and interesting things. It's been a while since we got to play the game, so it was really fun to get into that again. Now that I think about it, it's a bit similar to Terraforming Mars in that it's an unforgiving game for a beginner, and it really takes some plays to figure out how to get that resource engine going and how to get things working, because even for an experienced player, it can feel like you're just trying so hard to get the basic resources to make anything happen. But once you know how all the mechanisms work together, it's quite a fun challenge. The other 3-player game is one that we haven't played in quite a long time either, called ExLibris. And I was delighted to get back to this because it has been so long since I've played it. And it's just such a great and interesting take on worker placement and this card play that feels very unique too. It's also one where the physical components, just like with Via Nebula, really draw me to the game. They're just so well done. The artwork is great. And I'm such a sucker for that physical aesthetic of a game that it certainly enhances the enjoyment for me. But the gameplay itself, too, is quite interesting and challenging. So now I can actually, for real, wrap up with 2 games that we played with another couple. So as 4-player games, the first one was with our Aeons End Legacy group. We finally got back to try to take on the monsters in Aeons End. And here's kind of an interesting thing about this game. For much of our experience with Aeons End Legacy, my estimation of the game was really high, like 9 or 10 out of 10 level. But as the game has progressed, these past couple of levels we've tried to play have been so immensely difficult that we were unable to overcome them. And we're 4 extremely experienced gamers. I mean, we've all been playing for years and years, and we all play highly complex games, and yet here we were just completely befuddled as to how to tackle this puzzle. It's felt a little bit overwhelming and discouraging in that sense, just feeling like you don't even have a chance at anything that's happening here. So I think we have one more level to play still, and we'll see how it turns out. But, I mean, all that being said, it's still a really high quality, really well done game, and I do still think quite highly of it. I just don't know how you're supposed to win those higher levels. Now, speaking of huge legacy games, with a different couple, we got into Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. Now this one is amazing. We've only done the first gameplay of it so far, but wow, there's a lot going on here, and we're coming in as huge fans of the original Clank game, so I mean, you really can't go wrong. But they've really hit it out of the park so far, and we're only 1 play into it, so I'm definitely excited to keep playing this one and see how it all kind of unwraps. But so far, so good. I mean, I've heard good things about the game as a whole, so I have high expectations for it. And that's my games acquired and played in December. As usual, I'd like to know what you've been up to. Did you get anything fun over the holidays that you have either gotten to play yet or you're eager to get into? And what about legacy games in particular? I mean, I just adore them, but how do you feel about them? Are you currently playing any of them? Thanks so much for watching. The preceding video has been brought to you free of charge by me, Josh. The only thing I ask in return is that you could do one of the following. Give me a thumb up, push the subscribe button, or share the link to this video with somebody who you think would enjoy it. Cheers! After picking up Looney Quest later on. Now those are the games that I picked up my friend. I was thinking about this recently, and it's been years since I've played the... I was thinking about this recently, and it's been years since I've played any of this stuff, so I have to... I was thinking about it recently, and it's been years since I've played this... and asked what advice I would give for a young... He got to play as a big monster, and or was I the monster? No. La di da di da di da via Nebula. The crew. All right. I did some like I said, I mentioned in your whatever. What the f*** ever. Jeez.